You are listening to the Colts Report with Will Retherford, only on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report, Colts fans, and welcome to our bye week Colts Report. The Colts, of course, coming off of the bye week and now are a half game behind the best record in the NBA. They went into the week tied for the best record in the league, and we're here to talk about not the first half exactly because we're 10 out of 17, but the pre-bye portion of the schedule, where the Colts are at this point and what we expect for the rest of the year. And Will, I think at the very least, Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen have saved their jobs.
They've already exceeded expectation beyond. I mean, the fact they're 8-2, if they win one more game, they don't have a losing season. I don't envision them to lose, their last 8 games. It could happen. 7 games, excuse me. I see this as a team that right now is playing up to their potential. And I think the coaching staff has a large part to do with that. I think that Ballard has done a pretty good job of developing the offensive line, which has been a huge area of strength for this team. Now, there are also areas where he has really been lackluster in development and scouting. And I think that largely is going to be, the downfall of a really, really good Colts season is there's just a couple weaknesses big enough that prevent this team from reaching their mountaintop.
But the result of that so far has been 8-2, and a big part of that has been the new quarterback was brought in the offseason with a yawn. Spent the first 6 or 7 weeks as the front runner for MVP, crazy enough as it sounds. And we've seen some reverting to the mean, as we've mentioned. I'm not completely sold on Daniel Jones, but you got to admit he's been way, way better than what we expected, particularly when we thought Anthony Richardson was our starter.
I think so. He's the reason the Colts are in the position they're in. You saw the same offense be with Anthony Richardson last year and Joe Flacco for some games as well turn into the offense that you see with Daniel Jones. It's legitimately the same supporting cast outside of Tyler Warren.
Outside of Tyler Warren.
Quarterback has a large part in that. I think that he's been on time. He's been good. He's just been the point guard that offense needed. They don't need a superstar. They just need somebody that can distribute the ball to the playmakers as needed in the offense. Daniel Jones has done that effectively. I do agree with you that the weaknesses are there. He is reverting back to the mean. I think that the turnovers are going to continue to increase where we saw them, kind of the first 8 weeks of the season. The last 2 weeks has been there's been about 10 turnover-worthy plays, including fumbles and interceptions. On top of that, there's been 4 fumbles that were recovered by the Colts. I think that is concerning. That is something that you really do need to watch out for as this team gets into the meat of their schedule and ultimately into January and February. But you have to be happy with what the outcome has looked like so far. I think he's played himself into a contract. I don't think it's long-term. I think they probably are going to be committed to him for the next 2 years.
I was seeing the number $50 million at one point. That scared the crap out of me, man. That'd be a franchise killer.
I think that it's going to be in the 40 ballpark.
I'd rather roll with a rookie, man, and be able to keep everyone around.
Well, you've eliminated your ability to do that now with trading your first-round picks, unless you think that you can get a steal of the draft in the second round. Maybe.
You don't pay an average quarterback that kind of money. It's just a franchise killer.
You've seen teams that have done that, and it has been a bit of an issue for those organizations. Yeah.
You brought up Joe Flacco.
Well,
he's the ultimate one that I think of. Was average, had one pretty good playoff, and was average again for the rest of his career. And they paid him so much money that they never had a chance of winning the championship again.
I don't think that you send 2 first-round picks to the Jets for Sauce Gardner unless you are committed to Daniel Jones for the future. To me, I see that contract being structured somewhere in the Kirk Cousins range, 4-year, $180 million with some guaranteed money. It's going to be front-loaded the first 2 years, and then you're going to have opt-out.
Kirk Cousins was so overpaid, and this would be such an overpay if they did this. You're kind of stuck now, though.
Can you get better?
Probably not.
So you're kind of stuck with where you want to be. There's the opportunity that you could potentially do the ultimate 180 and let him walk. I would be really surprised by that. Offer him a contract that is under his value. You get a compensatory pick for him. I just don't see that as being the strategy with this team. I think they went too all in at the trade deadline to do so. We'll see. I think the jury is still out. I don't think there's a reason he hasn't gotten an extension yet. I don't see it happening this season unless he comes out these next 4 weeks against really stiff competition and plays lights out. And then I think that you're sold enough to feel comfortable giving him the money, especially with how he's looked with this organization. I see the hesitancy to do so. I see maybe the frustration and an overpay, but at this point, he's performed like you said about a top 10 quarterback when he's playing at his best.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up, Will. Before the season began, I said if everything goes perfectly, the offensive line's good, the weapons are improved, the running game's good, Daniel Jones can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And things have gone almost perfectly. Until the last couple of weeks, the offensive line has been at an A level. The run game is making history. The weapons are so improved. Every single one of those receivers is better last year, and I think a big part of that's because Tyler Warren's part of the mix.
Yeah.
And you add in Tyler Warren, and everything has gone perfectly, but it has gone perfectly. And in order for the Colts to succeed, they're going to need things to go perfectly if Daniel Jones is your quarterback going forward.
I think Michael Pittman, he's kind of filled his niche. I don't know if he's necessarily improved. I think he was a really good receiver from the get-go.
He's had a great year.
He's had a really good year, and I think that he had 3 really good years before the back injury caused him to really struggle last year with his consistency
for sure.
And overall production. But Tyler Warren is really an absolute game changer. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. I don't know if there's been anybody singing the praises of Tyler Warren more than we have, and rightfully so. He's completely changed the dynamic of this team. I think that he's got the opportunity to reach 1,000 yards in his rookie season. I expect him to be force-fed the ball maybe a little bit more. I think that the beauty of this offense has been that nobody is necessarily outshining anyone else, but you saw in that
different every week. I like it.
They needed Tyler Warren to really be a big playmaker, and I expect that to continue. At this point, he's completely enveloped in the NFL. He's played half a season. It's time for him to really be the focal point of your offense with Jonathan Taylor.
If he's not the best tight end in the NFL, it's already ridiculously close. And if he's not the best player on the Colts team, and I'm including Jonathan Taylor and Quentin Nelson, it's awfully close. He's that good.
I think he's the second best player on the Colts. I still think Jonathan Taylor is a generational running back. I know that word gets thrown out a lot, generational, in terms of a player's talent, but really he has outproduced all of his peers since he's entered into this league. That includes Derrick Henry. That includes Saquon Barkley. Jonathan Taylor stands on top of them all. I mean, he's top 5 in the league in average rushing yards per game with over 90 a game. That is the type of, I think, generational talent that deserves that word to have used with it. You know, he's in the upper echelon of the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame, per se, is where I think he's going to end up being.
The top level of the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
I think probably the best since Adrian Peterson.
I think that we'll see how he ages. I think that he has a chance to be better than Adrian Peterson when it's all said and done. I really do. I think that he's been that good. If this level of production continues, Adrian Peterson at back end of his career did not necessarily look as good as the front end. And with running backs, that does tend to happen. But right now, I'm not really sure that anybody rivals Taylor in terms of what he's done since he entered into the NFL.
You mentioned Pittman maybe hasn't improved as much as the others, but especially when you throw Tyler Warren in there as your 1A or 1B receiver, everything got so much better. Alec Pierce has gone up a level as a player this year. I think even Josh Downs has been better this year than he's been in the past. His numbers don't say it because he's not been as targeted as often because there are more weapons. And Ashton Doolin has to be one of the best number 5 receiving weapons when you throw Tyler Warren in there. That's a pretty good set of receivers. You throw that offensive line, like I said, last couple weeks, below par, but up to that point had been really good pass blocking and run blocking. I think they've been great run blocking all year. Really gives Daniel Jones a chance to be as good as he is, because those guys have just been so good.
I think that you saw Alec Pierce as, I think, a little bit more than a one-trick pony. I think for a while, kind of his route tree was limited in terms of what his skill set allowed him to do. He was more of that vertical thread over the top, try to pull the safeties back and kind of allow somebody like a Michael Pittman or Josh Downs to really feast in the short to intermediate game. And I think now that you see Pierce's route tree develop, I think they're using him a lot more across the middle of the formation. And he's still been able to keep up that level of production in terms of yards per catch. He's leading the league once again. That's something that he did last year. He had over 800 yards last year. And I think that to see his progression, even though his numbers at the end of the year may not be, he may not have 800 yards.
But it's obvious if you're watching every week.
I think it's obvious that he has markedly improved in terms of what he's able to do as a wide receiver. I think he's really grown as a blocker too, on the outside, which has really helped allow the run game, especially on outside zone schemes, to be as successful as it has been. Alec Pierce has taken a big step forward in a way that you mentioned Josh Downs. I'm not sure he has taken that step forward. And I think that Downs' size may always limit what he's able to do in terms of going across the middle.
So dependable.
He's really dependable.
They all are.
It has nothing to do with the dependability factor, but Alec Pierce is running 6'3", 215 pounds. What he's able to do as a wide receiver is a little different than Josh Downs at 5'10", 175. The Colts have 3 really big receiving targets, which we talked at the beginning of the year, I think was going to help Daniel Jones in terms of just his ability to get the ball to people's chest. The Colts are throwing out 3 pass catchers all over 6'3". That's a pretty big. I don't know in terms of where it ranks in the league, but I would imagine it's one of the bigger receiving corps in the NFL today. I think Ashton Dulin is an incredible gadget player. He's a gadget player. That's what he is. He's really fast. I think that you use him to maybe be a blocker when need be. He's obviously a special teams all-pro, I believe, and
he's exactly what you want from your 4th receiver, your 5th option.
Yeah, he has that kind of skill set where he's really fast. You can use him on jet sweeps and things like that. You can bring him in, throw him out to block. You don't really have to force feed him the ball at all. Just kind of give it to him when he's open. But he's continued, I think, to progress as his career has gone on from really more of just that gunner special teams type player into a really functional wide receiver 4, especially if somebody is out with injury or in the Adonai Mitchell case, out with coach's decision to bench. I think that you have to be really happy with what he's been able to do. And I think he's a testament to Steichen's progression as a coach in terms of developing these players into the versatile weapons that they are now. I think Reggie Wayne also has a lot to do with that as the wide receivers coach. He's definitely, I think, left an impact. He was an incredibly adaptable receiver over the course of his career. I mean, the ability to play inside and outside, and also he's an excellent run blocker, which is something that you really see this Colts team, I think, in taking and embodying that attitude.
I love that everybody seems to want to at least be good at blocking. If they're not good at it, they at least are enthusiastic blockers, and that'll get the job done most of the time.
I mean, you turn on the tape and look across the NFL, how many times you see a number 1 receiver really throwing his body out there to go make blocks? I can think of a couple off the top of my head between Ayuk when healthy and Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Michael Pittman's right there. Go turn on the tape.
So good.
I've never seen
Pierce, too, has been such a good blocker.
Never seen a wide receiver that they are so comfortable to use blocking in the box as Michael Pittman. They use him as a tight end and blocking. I think he has really been that good. And I think that's a testament to him as a player, as a leader and a captain of this franchise. There's a lot to like. There's just a lot that you can even continue to build upon. We talked about in that Falcons game in Berlin, how many times Michael Pittman was able to get the ball. If they wanted to force the ball to Pittman, it was there to do. And they still won, and he had 2 targets. So you have to be happy with that.
We don't need to talk about the actual blockers very much because we've talked about them ad nauseum throughout the year. And I think I oversold them a little bit. I think they were playing some weak teams early in the year, made them look a little better than they were. That being said, the job that Gonzalez and Bortolini have done coming in and improving an already pretty good offensive line. You mentioned that Chris Ballard, though, that's one thing he definitely did, was get good line talent down the draft, which is a very important thing to do. You don't want to be spending all of your first-round picks on offensive linemen. It has a chance to be special still, that offensive line.
I think that you look across the board, I mean, Nelson and Smith are established veterans in this league, but outside of that, Ryman's a third-year starter, Bortolini and Gonzalez are both in their second year in the league. I'm still a relatively
first-year starters,
young line.
Yeah.
Still have so much room to grow. You do have two stalwarts that have been a member of that line throughout kind of the Frank Reich into the Shane Steichen era, and you've seen kind of that carryover. But Quentin Nelson might have 6-7 more years if he is able to stay healthy. And I think Smith has even more tackles, age really well for the most part. So you have a chance to get 3 or 4 years with this core of an offensive line. And when you're able to do that, that's what made the Peyton Manning era so great, was that you had the same offensive line for the most part from year in, year out over the course of a 5-6 year span. I think this Colts team has the opportunity to do that with Gonzalez and Bortolini going to get some nice extensions when it comes time to up their contracts.
And this has been Quentin Nelson's best season by far, I think.
Every year he gets better.
So really good offense, feel pretty comfortable with them. We'll be talking about the Chiefs game coming up a little later this week and making our predictions, all of that. So I don't want to talk too much about the Chiefs. But they're going to provide the Colts a little bit of a different test defensively. We're going to see we're going to get our first look at the new look Colts defense with Sauce Gardner, and it's going to be interesting to see what that brings. There are some things the Chiefs can do to take advantage of some Colts defensive weaknesses. I think the defense is overachieved, but it's still a concern, right?
Well, I guess it depends on the construct of which you viewed this defense coming into the year. I kind of expect them to be pretty middle of the pack, maybe, I don't know, 17th to 18th best defense in the league. I think that they've been a little better than that. I don't know if they've been much better.
They've exceeded that.
With that being said, there's a reason you went and brought Sauce Gardner. You brought him for this game. You brought him to be able to shut down a Rashee Rice type of receiver. You have Mooney Ward over there to cover their number 2. You have Kenny Moore, who's able to kind of move and transcend the cornerback position a little bit. He's really good in the box. I expect him to be matched up with Kelsey a lot. You have 2 really good safeties. Like, if there's a strength that this Colts team has going up into a game against Chiefs or the Texans, the Seahawks, the 49ers, like these teams that have good receiving cores, the 49ers are pretty banged up, but when healthy, they are a good receiving core. And you built the secondary to go win those games. So you expect that the front seven is going to be able to hold their own against this Chiefs team, a little weaker in the run game. I think that, it's going to be strength on strength, per se. I think that you're going to see where the Colts are best aligned defensively and where the Chiefs are best aligned offensively. But you had to see improvement from the front 4. That's been a huge area of weakness. They're just not getting to the quarterback. They're giving guys too much time to stand in the pocket and deliver good footballs. And I think that you expect to see that get better with the addition of a lockdown corner. I think the linebacking core is probably going to be the Achilles heel of this team because they are so bad. Regardless of what you want to say about Zaire Franklin, he is a bottom 4th middle linebacker in the league. His inability and ineffectiveness in the pass game is really concerning in zone concepts.
They don't have a linebacker who you would want to be a starter on their entire roster.
No, there's not a starting linebacker for 15 other teams on the Colts roster. Maybe Franklin, but he's your will linebacker. He's your weak side linebacker, somebody that you're, kind of out there, your third option. And, that's probably an issue going forward is, can you improve that linebacking core? There was the opportunity, if they could have moved up in the second round, maybe get a Schlesinger from UCLA, who's now playing with Cleveland, and looked really good. And Sunday's game against the Ravens got his first interception. But they didn't do so. And I think they kind of decided to stand pat. Paid Franklin. He's been a vocal leader and captain for this organization for a few years now.
There is that.
But the talk's kind of cheap because I don't really see the production on the field matching what he's done on the podcast.
I think we did see against the Falcons that when you have a shutdown corner, a group of shutdown defensive backs, which I think is a real possibility, especially against a quarterback like Michael Penix, that you saw a lot more pass rush, a lot more success in the pass rush because they're able to bring Zaire Franklin, who's far better rushing the passer than he is playing pass defense.
Yep. And I think on top of that, I think the injury to DeForest Buckner is worrisome because he might be your best pass rusher on the team, even though he's a 3 technique. He's a defensive tackle. That's not really where he's supposed to be strongest. But they have the opportunity, I think, to show that that's an area where Latu is developing, where you're continuing to see Kwity Paye develop into the player that you drafted him, hopefully, to be. You have 2 really good interior defensive linemen between Stewart and Buckner. Buckner's obviously injured. I think that the front 4 is playable for the most part. I don't think that there's such a weakness that it's going to be what derails. I see the linebacking group as really the issue. And I will preface that they did a pretty good job against Atlanta of minimizing Bijan's impact, even though he had.
It's because the defensive backs are fast and tackle.
I think so. And I think Nick Cross kind of helps shore up that linebacking room, even though he is the strong safety. He does play in the box an awful lot.
Yeah.
He's their best linebacker. He's also he's not their best safety. Cam Bynum is, but he is.
It's close.
Really good.
Nick Cross has had a great year, man.
League. There's a lot to like with this Colts. I think that you've seen the game plan switch up between Inarumo as far as the percentage of zone coverage versus man coverage. He has been an amoeba defensive coordinator where he's really strategizing against the other team's strength. That's something that you really want to see progress in these last 7 games when you're playing against top-end competition. You hopefully see him find that role for Sauce Gardner where he really is kind of able to be the impact player that you brought him here to be. We'll see. It's going to take some time. I think Colts fans need to be patient with Gardner, even though he is an all-pro cornerback and was the rookie of the year. It's difficult to switch systems like that middle of the year when you didn't get a whole training camp with the rest of the team. It can be hard.
Before we get to our expectations for the rest of the year and how good we think they can be, I want to praise one more time the coaching staff who's had this team ready to play every single week, I think, this year, except for maybe that Atlanta game was a pretty sluggish start, but that's a game in Berlin. You never know what to expect. Even the Steelers game, they came out and played well at the beginning and then got their butts kicked the rest of the game. And the game plan seemed to be good. They don't seem to have any of the yo-yo effect that a lot of other teams have with energy and emotion. I say at the very minimum, A- to this coaching staff so far.
For sure, and I would even argue, that Atlanta game, the Colts kind of let Atlanta stay in it, not from an energy standpoint, but in not being able to convert on 4th down. They got in the red zone an awful lot, got inside deep into Atlanta territory, and they just weren't able to kind of finish the drives off in a way. I think that, Steichen, all these offensive coordinators, offensive gurus, get cute. When sometimes your best play might just be inside zone. Maybe you're on 4th and 2, your best play, instead of trying to draw up some gadget plays, just hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor and let him get 2 yards. That's an area that I think Steichen sometimes likes to get himself into, where, look at how much of a genius I am. This play is the most brilliant play that's ever been called. Maybe we just run quarterback sneak here instead of trying to, create some illusion offensively. I would say that they've come out ready to play and win a football game 10 out of 10 weeks so far.
And, we've talked about the offense, the defense, the coaching, the weapons, the lines, the defensive back, the defensive front. What's it all end up in the end?
I think realistically, they're probably at 12 wins. The stretch stuff. They've won 8 games. I expect 12-5.
good enough to be competitive for a championship, but probably not good enough to win one. That's my assessment.
They're good enough to get to the AFC Championship. I'm not sure they're good enough to win that game and get to the Super Bowl. If you get the early season Indianapolis Colts, there's not a defense in the league that can slow them down. I mean that. That offense, when it's firing on all cylinders, is that good.
But you don't want to play in Foxborough, and you don't want to play in Denver, and you don't want to play in Kansas City, and you don't want to play in Buffalo, so you need to win these games.
I would say the team that scares me the most in terms of this Colts team would probably be Denver, because they already played once. And I think that sometimes you get a read on a team, it can be difficult. I think it's really hard to beat teams twice. And I think that's why you see the Buffalo-Kansas City thing. Kansas City comes into the postseason having already played Buffalo, getting Buffalo's best game. They're able schematically to do that. The Patriots, I would love the Colts to play the Patriots because I think Jonathan Taylor is the best back they've seen the whole year. I don't see, they're not holding Jonathan Taylor under 50 rushing yards, let's put it that way, unless Steichen decides that's what's going to happen. Denver's a challenge. You know, it sounds crazy because they're just 500, but that Houston team scares me a lot too. I would not want to run into them in the postseason.
Will Retherford, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, and if you've been listening for 28 minutes, I assume that you do, please do us a huge favor and share it with a Colts fan in your life and help us spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is here talking about the sports that Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every single day. Thanks again, Will.
Yep, thank you.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.